Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of TGC Radio. This is episode 5, and we're going to be taking a look at my most listened to music, artist, albums, and songs from the week December 22nd to December 28th, 2023. And we'll also be taking a look after that at my favorite albums that I listened to throughout 2023, but not necessarily released in 2023. With that being said, that is the intro. Let's jump straight into the week-to-week stuff, as I always like to do. And like always, let's kick off with artist. My most listened to artist of the week was Against the Current. And then we have Echosmith, Blink-182, Spanish Love Songs, The Killers, and Honey Revenge. And admittedly, that's all par for the course for me. That makes sense. Obviously, a lot of the ranking for this week specifically, even more so than last week, comes down to I made some playlists to help make some of these year-end list rankings and stuff like that easier. And I've been going back to a lot of those. Songs, artists, albums, etc. So yeah, that's that. And there's not too much else to say with that, so we'll move on to albums. And my top album of the week, just like my top album of the entire year, is Talking Dreams by Echosmith. Tied at number 2, we have In Our Bones by Against the Current and One More Time by Blink-182. Then coming in at number 4, we have Past Lives by Against the Current, Retrovision by Honey Revenge. And then tied at number 6, we have Brand New Me by Concrete Castles, and To the Stars, Demos, Odds, and Ends by Tom DeLonge. But again, that was albums, and the exact same reason I talked about with artists, this all makes sense for me, and I was listening to those custom playlists, trying to make the year-end list easier by listening to a bunch of stuff in a very compact way. And songs, we actually have a lot more to talk about. So, with songs, we have, my top song is a tie between 2, and that is Let's Get Fucked Up and Die by Motion City Soundtrack and Landmines by Sum 41. So then, coming in at number 3, we have A Lot tied. The same amount of plays overall, a lot tied here, and that is the song In Our Bones by Against the Current, Runaway by Against the Current, also from In Our Bones. And then we have 3 songs by Blink, all from One More Time, and that is Dance With Me, More Than You Know, and One More Time. Then we have Run by Bring Me the Horizon from That's the Spirit. And then we have Let's Love by Echosmith from Talking Dreams. Let's Get Fucked Up and Die, to be brutally honest, I was just really feeling that song throughout the week. Things weren't the best, let's just put it that way. Things were not too great, but let's just put it that way, things weren't that great, especially with work within the past week, but it's fine right now, so we're good. But yeah, I was really feeling that song. Landmines, I don't know why I put off listening to Landmines for as long as I did, but no, Landmines is a good song. I really like it. And it's got me really hyped up for Heaven and Hell. And then In Our Bones and Runaway, again, ever since I finally sat down and re-listened to In Our Bones as a record, I really like it. It's been in constant rotation, and those 2 songs, I was just feeling them at a certain point. I like them both a lot. And then, obviously, like I said before, One More Time, along with a bunch of other albums, I revisited to make the year-end list easier. Let's Love, same kind of reason, and then Run by Bring Me the Horizon, I don't really know, I just started thinking about that song specifically, and I started listening to it a lot again, so, yeah. But generally, not being a huge fan of Bring Me, I like Run a lot, actually. To be fair, everything I've heard from That's the Spirit, I do like, so, yeah. But nonetheless, that was the week-to-week stuff, not too much else to talk about, so let's move straight into my favorite my favorite albums that I listen to throughout the year, but of course, ground rules, there's 2, and they are 1 entry per artist. And 2, just remember, this is stuff that I've listened to throughout the entire year, not necessarily released in this year. That will be a separate video, so check that out when it comes out, but here we go. My favorite albums that I listened to in 2023, we're doing a top 12 list, my top 12 albums that I listened to. Before we get into the list, I do have some honorable mentions. Those are Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, Childhood Eyes by Yellow Card, The Record by Boy Genius, and Commit This to Memory by Motion City Soundtrack. Now, they are all here instead of potentially in the list proper because I listened to all of them in full, obviously, but I just feel like I need to sit down with them more, listen to them in full more, and just really take them in again. And I just didn't feel right trying to, like, squeeze them into the list and probably having them lower than I'd really want them. So, they're all honorable mentions, things I listened to throughout the year that I really liked, but I just feel like I need more time with them. But they're all there. But coming in at number 12, we have To the Stars, Demos, Odds, and Ends by Tom DeLonge. And what can I say? I really didn't know what to expect when listening to this record, you know? Record, EP, whatever you want to call it. All that I knew about it was that Tom was writing these songs as potential Blink songs. But, you know, the bad blood between him and Mark was still around at the time, so Mark didn't want anything to do with him, and blah, 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 you know, the rest is history. But when I just randomly popped this record on one day, I didn't know what to expect. Besides, I expected all the songs to feel way more like demos, but instead, they all feel pretty fleshed out as they are. Like, it doesn't really feel like a bunch of demos or anything, you know? And I genuinely really enjoyed the record. I thought it was very good. I don't love the entire thing, and I do think it'd be interesting to see some of the songs as either fully fleshed out Blink songs or fully fleshed out Angels and Airwaves songs. But nonetheless, yeah, it was very solid and I think is perfect right where it's at here at the bottom of the list. But then we move on to number 11, and that will be Transit of Venus by 3 Days Grace. And in the previous 2 lists, I've had something by Saint Asonia, so you probably expected something like this if you watched the previous episodes, and what can I say? 3 Days Grace, I've talked about them before, they were one of the first bands that I got into because I liked them, and when I was reintroduced to the band early high school, I was like, okay, you know, I'm old enough now to understand things a bit more, and when I finally listened to Transit of Venus in full, it was so good. And like, I know the record is the most divisive record that they've put out, right? It's either like you hate it or love it, you know? And like, obviously, I guess you could say the same for the Matt era, but like, that's the Matt era in general. Some people just don't like the band with Matt. But like, of all the records that, you know, of all the records that most people consider to be like from the peak era of the band, self-titled to Transit of Venus, this is like a hate it or love it, very divisive, and yeah. Like, I know that, but god damn it, like, I love this record. It's my favorite record the band has put out. There's just something that feels so special about the record to me. It's the only 3 Days Grace record, that's right, it's the only 3 Days Grace record for me that is like no skips. I'll listen all the way through, like pretty much anytime I want to listen to it. I like every track, and even then I don't feel like it's perfect or anything like that, but it's still, again, my opinion solely here, I think it's their strongest material, and I love it a lot. But again, comparing Transit, as much as I do still love it, to all the other records on the list, I'm just more likely to come back to everything else more than Transit of Venus, so at this point anyway. So yeah, it still has to be fairly low, but it comes in at number 11. But coming in at number 10, we have the sophomore release, Brand New Me by Concrete Castles. Now, I've talked about this record and Concrete Castles quite a bit before. I followed the band since the First to 11 cover days. I say as if they're not still doing First to 11 with the covers and everything. They are, and a lot of the covers are still very good. But, yeah, so, I'm familiar with the band, known them for quite a long time now, and I was very excited when they announced the new band, the record deal. Wish I Missed You. I like Wish I Missed You a lot more than I did at first. I liked it a lot when it came out. And Brand New Me, I think, is a very solid sophomore release. And again, I think Wish I Missed You, as a whole record, is still a bit stronger, but the moments that are the highest highs, the strongest moments, the strongest songs on Brand New Me are better than the strongest songs on Wish I Missed You. And I love the record a lot. And I feel like it is totally fitting of being above Transit of Venus here for me. But I've talked about it quite a bit before, so I'll leave it brief, keep it there, and we'll move on to number 9, which is a record that I started listening to very recently, and that is Page Avenue, 10 Years and Counting by Story of the Year. And like I've said before, I've had this record, I've owned this record since the Google Play Music days, and I just never got around to listening to anything really outside of the re-recorded Until the Day I Die, and I like that a lot. But again, fairly recently, when I finally sat down and listened to 10 Years and Counting, it just kind of blew me away. And I love it so much. I mean, admittedly, there's one song I don't particularly care for, but still, I'd still listen to that song if it came on. I just wouldn't go out of my way to listen to it. It's just a really good re-recording of Page Avenue, and I've talked about it quite a bit before, so again, I'll keep it brief and move on to number 8, which is Boxcar Racer. And what can I say, Like I've said in the past as well, this year I really dug into Blink's discography. Not fully, but I listened to the Matt Skiba records, I listened to One More Time when it came out, I did When Your Heart Stops Beating and Boxcar Racer, listened to Angels and Airwaves, listened to Tom's solo record, etc. I dug into a lot of the side stuff. And Boxcar Racer is so strong. And when I've heard people describe it basically as the most accessible post-hardcore record, that is so true. And that's basically what Tom was going for, And it's so good. Again, I don't think, if we compare it to When Your Heart Stops Beating, because again, I think if we compare it to When Your Heart Stops Beating, because I think it's just fun to do that. I think When Your Heart Stops Beating is an overall stronger record, but again, kind of like with Brand New Me and Wish I Missed You from Concrete Castles, with Boxcar Racer and When Your Heart Stops Beating, I think the highest highs, the strongest material on Boxcar Racer eclipses the strongest on When Your Heart Stops Beating. But both are very good, and I loved Boxcar Racer so much. But coming in at number 7, we have Retrovision by Honey Revenge, and again, talk about a record from fairly recently that I love a lot. It absolutely rips, And it absolutely rips. Every song is so good. And, I really love, the guitar tone on this record. And, any time that the guitar gets to shine just a little bit, it sounds so good. And of course, like, some of my favorite tracks right away were stuff like Are You Impressed and Habitual, Murphy's Law. But then I re-listened to some to prepare for this list, and I was like, Fight or Flight goes super hard. Distracted is great. And favorite song just might be, like, my favorite chorus on the entire record. And again, I like the entire record as well. Which is the first record in the list where there's not a single track that I don't like on any of these records. To throw that out there as well. Moving on to number 6, we have a record that when I started listening to like my favorites from it again, I listened to basically the entire record again to prepare for the list, and when I started going back, I was genuinely surprised just how much I really love this record and how high up I wanted to push it in the list. Because originally I had this list near the bottom, or this album near the bottom of the list. But this is Smile and Wave by Saint, which is the solo project from the frontwoman of We Are the In Crowd, Tay. And yeah, I genuinely love this record a lot. And like I said just a moment ago, when I re-listened to it for this list, it blew me away because I hadn't really come back to it. Like, I knew I liked it, but it sat with me way more and just, oh, I love it so much. It's just a straight up bop of a record, and I love it. And some little notes from when I listened to it again, post listening to my favorite 3 tracks from it the first time to prepare for the list. I just want to talk about this because I said, oh my god, I forgot just how good Eyes Are Open is. Like, thank god I started re-listening to this record again, and I said I really like the synth in With or Without Me. I love when the guitar shines on this record, like I was talking about with Retrovision, actually. Same kind of feeling there. And I said, I've definitely learned that I just really, really like this record. And basically the entire thing is so good. The entire thing is so good. Not basically, it is so good. And it hit me in a way that, it just hit me in like a special way. But as we get into the top 5, number 5 is Past Lives by Against the Current. And this was interesting because part of me wanted to put like In Our Bones, since I re-listened to it recently, on here. Part of me wanted to put like maybe Fever on here. But it has to be Past Lives because, as I've talked about before in other episodes of TGC Radio, Past Lives was a record that I listened to at the start of the year, way back in January, and again, it just hit me in a special way. And some of the songs, like, I love the entire record, and some of the songs, like Friendly Reminder, to use it as an example, whenever I heard that, or really any song from the record, it just kind of made me happy, at least for a brief time. It got me out of any sort of mood I was in. It got me to stop thinking about what was either making me upset, angry, depressed, or whatever. And I knew that how much I love it making me happy like that, and also knowing that it stayed literally in constant rotation throughout the entire year, from January when I first listened to it all the way till the end of December when I'm recording this. Past Lives has always been there as one of my top records. So I knew it had to be here, and yeah, I love Past Lives a lot. I don't think it's their strongest material, but I love it so much. And funny enough, I could totally see some of these songs, a lot of these songs, hitting hard live. I totally could. Which is funny to me, because I know Chrissy had talked about sometimes, they were changing the songs. They were changing how they would perform and play the songs live from the stuff before Fever. But yeah, low-key, some of these songs from Past Lives, I could totally see just hitting live, And yeah, I love the record a lot. It was originally slotted in above One More Time, but I feel like One More Time deserves just to be slightly higher, and that's why Past Lives has fallen down one spot. But in saying that, number 4, One More Time by Blink-182. Yeah, this record is so interesting, you know, because I know a lot of people were not thrilled with Edging when it came out last year, and I get it. I've always said the same thing. It's a fine song that they wrote just to see if they could still write together. The answer is yes, blah, 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 blah. But it's like one of the weakest songs on the record. And yeah, but One More Time is still very good. You have something like Anthem Part 3, which goes hard, is an incredible opener for One More Time of all albums. You have the amazingly heartfelt title track. More Than You Know goes super hard as well. You have the really good Cure-inspired songs like Fell in Love and Blink Wave. Funny enough, like, my least favorite track on the record is actually the Leftover Boxcar track, which I did not expect going into the record. I was like, what? What were you even thinking, brain? But yeah, no, like, when I listened to it, and yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what I was trying to say there, but yeah, when I listened to Terrified, I was like, I wanted to like it so much because I knew I loved Boxcar Racer. And yeah, something just does not hit for me with that song. But genuinely, like I said, the title track, More Than You Know, Anthem Part 3, Dance With Me also grew on me a lot because I didn't care for it when I first listened to it, but it's grown on me a lot as well. The Cure-inspired tracks, etc. I think it's a very solid record. And yeah, absolute. Like, it was Blink being both mature while not forgetting what got them, like, a fan base and popularity in the first place, you know? Like, there's still some of that just, like, natural, almost charming Tom and Mark juvenile humor mixed in with the more mature stuff that they've done separately. And really together since, you know, like, Untitled, but even Take Off Your Pants and Jacket was still a little bit more mature as well. But yeah, like, One More Time, it combines, like, all eras of Blink. It works so well as a record, and I love it so much. But then we move on to number 3, which is Talking Dreams by Echosmith. And again, I've talked about this record a lot. It's my most listened to record throughout the entire year. I've never stopped listening to it when I first sat down and listened to the entire thing. And originally I had it at number 2, but you'll see what number 2 is in a minute. But yeah, to be honest, this record at number 1, which if you have paid attention to me throughout all TGC radios and stuff like that, you probably can guess number 1. But regardless, yeah, Talking Dreams in number 1, I almost didn't even want to include in the list because, like, I never stopped listening to them, you know? I've always listened to them from the moment that I heard them. I love them. And, like, they're always constant rotation no matter what. And they have been for years. So it almost didn't feel fair to have both of them in the list still. But, like, at the same time, they are records that I listen to throughout the year. And Talking Dreams isn't even in the top 2. It's number 3. So I feel like it's, again, part of me feels like it's not exactly fair, but I still think it's fair because I still listen to it a lot throughout the year. It's a record I listen to in the year, which is part of the criteria for the list, you know what I mean? But yeah, no, I love Talking Dreams. Some of the notes I took on the most recent re-listen as well. And I just said, really, I just really love the indie rock sound on the record. And it kind of combines what I like about a lot of the records in the list. It's easy to listen to, it feels good to listen to, but it still feels like a rock record at the end of the day. Like, Let's Love is terrific, which is a song I specifically re-listened to for... because, I guess to let you in on how my process for making this list, I made the playlist with my favorite 3 songs from each record. And then, if I felt like I needed to do another re-listen, I took my next 3 favorites from each record. And I listened to them from what I consider to be the bottom of the list, up to what would be the top of the list, and yeah, I figured it out from there. And I did have some stuff move around at the end, so it ended up working really well. I liked that process a lot. And Let's Love, Nothing Wrong, and March Into the Sun were the songs that I listened to for the re-listen. The ranking 3.0 is what I called it. And like, yeah, Let's Love is terrific. I really liked the bass and the bridge of Nothing's Wrong. And like, the record itself just makes me happy. And something I thought about, Talking Dreams was like the perfect record for me to pair with like Brave Face's Everyone in 2021, which is when I listened to both of those. And because like, one is like an angry and sad record that sounds sad, emo through and through, and can be like an emotionally draining record that at times is exactly what I needed, you know, for like how I was feeling at the time. But then Talking Dreams was a great kind of like foil to that, where, like I said, it just makes me happy. It's a feel-good record, and again, they were like the perfect records for me at the time. And I also said, like, I really love the guitar on this record, and it's something that definitely feels kind of missing in the Echo Smith albums after this one. Like, it's still there, and you can still notice it, hear it, but there's just something specific about, like, the lead guitar on Talking Dreams specifically that I just love a lot. As well as that, you know, the first 3 songs that I listened to for ranking 2.0, if you will, those were Safest Place, Bright, and the title track, Talking Dreams. And I didn't mention March Into the Sun, but I love March Into the Sun as well. I love the entire record. I don't think there's a bad track on it, like I've said for a lot of these records, starting with a certain point. But yeah, I've talked about a lot about Talking Dreams, and it was almost number 2. But number 2, Sam's Town by The Killers, my first and favorite record by The Killers. Like I've said, it was originally gonna be number 3, but I knew that on ranking 2.0, I guess is what I'm calling it, the first re-listen to make the list, when I was listening to like When You Were Young, Bones, and This River Is Wild, my favorite 3 from the record, like, they all just hit so hard. I love everything about the record and those songs specifically as well, and they just hit me in a certain way. And it's like, yes, Sam's Town has to be within the top 2 for sure. I mean, obviously, like, you'll learn what my number 1 is in a minute, but Sam's Town never crossed my mind to be number 1, but I knew it had to be above, like, in the top 2. But then I started listening to songs like Read My Mind, Why Do I Keep Counting, and the title track Sam's Town on ranking 3.0. And yeah, like, Why Do I Keep Counting is a really good song that really shows why I like Sam's Town so much. But admittedly, actually, after listening to Why Do I Keep Counting, I was still kind of leaning Talking Dreams in the number 2 spot. Barely, but I was still leaning Talking Dreams. But, you know, the song is very good. I love the ending of the song as well. And then Read My Mind is also very good. And then Read My Mind, even before getting to the title track Sam's Town, Read My Mind was like, yes. That's the point where I was like, yes, it's above Talking Dreams. The title track solidified it, and yeah, I love all those. And for the first re-listen as well to make the list, the When You Were Young, This River's Wild and Bones. When You Were Young was one of my first songs by The Killers that I remember listening to. I love it so much. It's iconic. It's probably not as iconic as Bright Side, but it could be. I could see some people considering it more iconic than the rest of Hot Fuss. Just not Bright Side, obviously. And yeah, like, it always hits hard. It's great. And even then, When You Were Young's not my favorite on the record. Like, Bones is a great, very theatrical track. This River's Wild basically takes what I love about When You Were Young and does it better, I think, in every way. And yeah, I just love Sam's Town a lot, and I just like The Killers a lot, and that's why they were like the one band where I basically went through their entire discography throughout the year. And yeah, I love this record a lot. But in saying all of that, number 1, Brave Faces Everyone by Spanish Love Songs. And, like, obviously, you know, like I said, nothing was gonna beat Brave Faces. It's one of very few records that I consider to be, like, 10 out of 10 perfect. Like, nothing wrong with it. And somehow, despite how sad of a record it is, how depressing it can be, how emotionally draining it can be, it's something that I've basically had in constant rotation since the first listen. Something that's always just been there. And I love this record. And again, I love No Joy a lot. And you will see No Joy when I talk about the records that came out in 2023 that I listened to as well. You'll see that in that video, obviously. But Brave Faces, as much as I love No Joy, and it gives off some different vibes, it's more depressing, but again, it's crying on the dance floor, basically. I love that description. Brave Faces, I think, is still a stronger record, even if it is doing something different to No Joy. And yeah, like, I don't know how they did it, but they made, again, in my mind, a perfect record. And I love Spanish Love Songs so much. And also, I don't know if I've ever said it publicly, but also, thank you to, like, the YouTube content creators who were talking about Brave Faces when it released in 2020. Like, for me personally, that would be, like, Luke from Rot, Mark from Spectrum Pulse, Crash Thompson, and John from ARTV. Like, the Rock Coliseum guys, you might know them as, like, those 4 guys, like, for me specifically, thank God they were talking about this record and praising it, because, like, I had no idea it existed. Like, I knew I liked emo, and I liked punk, and pop punk, and stuff like that, but, like, I didn't know Spanish Love Songs even existed as a band. I'd never heard of them, and they started talking about them in an episode of Rock Coliseum, and I'm like, oh, okay, this sounds very interesting. And then I checked it out. I was like, wow, this is something that I never knew that I needed in my life. And yeah. And then I love this record. I love No Joy. Eventually, I will sit down and finally listen to Schmaltz in full. I've listened to about half the record. I'll sit down with it from the beginning again and listen to it. And I am very interested in Giant Sings the Blues as well, the first record. I'll check out their other stuff as well. But yeah, no, I knew, boring answer for me, but I knew Brave Faces was number 1 right away. Like, nothing was topping Brave Faces. Talking Dreams could have. Catch Me on a Different Day, Talking Dreams could have. Because, like, I paired those two together, and that's part of why, again, I wanted to make them top 2. But, again, I think Sam's Town, just when I made the ranking, eked out the number 2 spot. But yeah, no, I've talked about Brave Faces a lot. I'm not going to sit here and make this any longer than it already is. So that was my favorite records that I listened to in 2023. And stay tuned for the next episode of TGC Radio, because not only will we be doing the week-to-week stuff like always, but the next one, we will finally be taking a look at what I consider to be the best songs and then the best albums from 2023, which means what released in 2023. And that'll be a cool way to kick off the new year. I don't know exactly what it will be right now. I've already started working on both of those, and I'll get them finished up for the next episodes. And yeah, that is what I will say. But until next time, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.